There has been a lot of talk about what the reason is behind Helldivers 2's big success this year. What makes this small space shooter appeal to so many people? They have said it's a live service done right, it has the best battle pass system ever, the gameplay is just fun, blowing up your teammates is top tier, time gating the story so that the community can experience it all together live isn't so bad, and all of that is true. The game's success is due to all of those things, but as a person who came to this game straight from Destiny, my slightly different perspective is that this game offers what makes the best looters great, but evolved. You know, refined, without the unnecessary BS. Let me explain. Even if you've never played this game before, the basics shown here should be familiar to most of you. This is the beginning of it all. 1996, Diablo 1, the birth of the looter. Tons of enemies, even more loot. Fox and I love looters. We didn't play this one, our start with looters came much later with Destiny. We went on to play pretty much every looter that would come out after that. Monster Hunter, The Division, Borderlands, Outriders, Minecraft Dungeons, Diablo 4. There are many more, but you get it. The loot genre is everywhere. It started out with Diablo as action RPGs, but now you can find it combined with every genre pretty much, with varying degrees of success. Common among pretty much all of these is the gameplay loop of getting into the game at a low difficulty level, learning to use your character and abilities, killing tons of enemies, and using the gear and resources that you get from those enemies to power yourself up to do the same thing, but against harder enemies. There's usually a pretty good story in there too about how you're the only person who can save the world, but that's the gist of the gameplay. It's simple, it's familiar, and it appeals at least on some basic level to most gamers. The key with looters though is the extra layer of complexity that comes from the loot itself. The gear that you get from your battles or find in the world, gear that holds the promise of increased power for your character, that gear. In order to really impress a player with a pile of shiny new loot, there has to be a lot of it, right? Loot raining from every boss and out of every treasure chest. But that's also the problem. The first problem is that the loot isn't special if it's all the same. Why give me 400 of the exact same chest piece? If they're all the same, just give me one and give me something else. But you can't handcraft thousands or millions of individual pieces of gear in a game. So this is where randomizing loot comes in. Developers will create smaller sets of gear and then assign every piece a range of stats and maybe a set of possible perks. And then each time you get this particular item, the game will create the item with a random selection of these perks and stats. So now you have one chess piece with thousands or millions of possible permutations. The game can afford to rain down so much loot on you because the odds of you getting the combination that you want for your build is so incredibly low. This is why playing a looter is often compared to playing a casino slot machine. You're hoping for that one beyond lucky loot drop where the heavens open up and the stars align and you find that exact piece of gear that you need for your build. And that leads directly to the second problem. For some people, this loot chase, the grind to get exactly the gear you want with exactly the right combination of stats and perks is where they get their enjoyment from this type of game. But for a different person, and this is probably the larger group, this is insanity. They see that floor covered with slightly different flavors of the same gear and they don't see it as a triumph, they see it as a waste of time. This is where Helldivers 2 deviates from a looter. The game keeps the gameplay loop of kill enemies, get gear and resources, get stronger, repeat at a higher difficulty, but it gets rid of the extra layer of complexity that come with the loot grind. It gets rid of the loot entirely. When you start the game on day 1, mission 1, you have everything you need to handle almost everything the game will ever throw at you. The starting assault rifle, the Liberator, is the best overall gun in the game. Every other gun excels in one area or another, but that comes at a cost. The breaker automatic shotgun, for example, puts out damage much faster than your standard assault rifle, but because it is a spread shotgun, it is far better at doing this job up close than it is from farther away. The breaker trades long-range accuracy for overwhelming close-range damage. The Liberator is made to be good at all ranges, while not being overwhelming in any. Also, everyone gets the same Liberator with the same weapon stats. No Liberator is better than any other. If you see one on the ground and you pick it up, it's the same experience that you are used to. There are no levels to your characters or your gear. You don't need to get the same gun that you have, but at level 10 instead of level 9 in order to do the same damage to your enemies. The exact same gun and armor you unlocked on day 1 will work on the day you play the hardest mission in the game. You can see how the random nature of stats and perks on gear, plus the nature of having to keep up with the level of your character and the enemies you face, all of it can get a little overwhelming. While one gamer may prefer the build crafting potential of every instance of a Liberator being slightly different, another gamer will see that as needlessly complicated. And so, Helldivers 2 ditches the random loot entirely. As you play the game, you will passively earn the resources that you need to unlock more gear options. If this passive grind is too slow for you, you can make the extra effort to explore the map during your missions and you will find resources all around you, just waiting to be picked up. This will make your grind much faster. It doesn't make you better, since as I said before, the new gear you unlock isn't necessary to play anything in the game. When you get better at the game, it will be because you have a mastery of the game mechanics, that you know how each individual enemy type behaves and how best to take it down, and what each objective asks of you and how to accomplish it. You will be better at the game because you got good, essentially, not because you unlocked the special instant win button. There is definitely fancy gear that takes quite a while to unlock, but since you can share this gear with your noob friend, even that isn't a roadblock to getting everyone having a good time in game. Helldivers 2's devs made the choice to forego randomized loot deliberately, and because of that, more players with more skill levels can have fun equally in the game, and that's a great thing. Because when I try to bring my new friend into a game of Destiny, or Division, or Diablo, without spending a significant amount of time leveling up their character and farming for gear to make a build, they will not be able to survive. And more often than not, they check out way before they get to the point where the real fun starts. Now, to be fair, this approach does have a downside. For those small groups of players who really look forward to the grind, of which I am definitely one of them, the loss of the complexity and self-expression that comes from building and customizing your character is lost when the random loot chase is lost. But in the case of Helldivers 2, I think it's a fair trade-off to make. There are plenty of much more complex looters I can play when the mood strikes, but when playing with friends, Helldivers nails the simplicity of multiplayer better than most. Another way this simpler gameplay approach works is in the enemies themselves. In a game where a person can grind out insane levels of powerful gear when given enough time, developers have to balance the game in a way that gives those players a challenge. Often this comes at a cost of the game then becoming much too difficult for your average player. The enemies are adjusted to not be a pushover for the most geared players, so to everyone else, those same enemies become bullet sponges. To accommodate for all the different desires and skill levels of all the different players that want to play any given game is a Herculean task, right? Along with the ability to customize the game's difficulty to exactly how you like it, and the fact that you will gather the resources you need no matter what difficulty you play in, and that includes the premium currency for purchasing battle passes, and even the base price of the game itself being $40 instead of the industry standard $70. Like we said, all of these reasons are why Helldivers managed to capture such a huge audience against seemingly all odds. The game is built to provide gamers with a fun time no matter your skill level, with friends, with strangers, or solo, and because they were not greedy in how they chose to do it, Arrowhead was rewarded with financial success and one of the biggest hits of 2024. Let's hope that the looters we love, and all other games really, can take a positive lesson from that success for their own games. Don't just put mechanics into your games just because that's how things have always been done. Look at the experience that you're trying to provide and really think, is this system necessary? And if it's not, don't be afraid to toss it. Your future players will thank you by enjoying your game that much more.
Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.